Hi, welcome to star making for our online sugar plum fair. So I had a big piece of watercolor paper and I got asked to make some star shaped things out of it, and I started with making this lantern, but I had so much paper left over that I decided to do two other star projects with it. So the other piece is this origami star that Ms Wu taught me how to make. I think all the 7th and 8th graders have done this in math classes. And I also have these little teeny tiny stars, which are really tricky with watercolor paper, but I did make a few. So I have this video to work on a star lantern, and I'm going to add directions for how to make this origami star and how to make these little stars as well. So let's get started. I think in your Sugar Plum Fair supplies, you all have a big piece of watercolor paper, and this is one I painted here so that I could work along with you. So the first thing I need to do is make this into a square so I can take off the square for my lantern. So I have some scissors here. I think that's the only supply you'll need for all of these three star crafts. So I'm going to start by doing a careful job of folding down a corner of my watercolor paper. I got my corner all aligned here the best I could to do a really careful corner. It's tricky to fold watercolor paper, isn't it? And now I am making sure this edge lines up, and I'm folding all along this diagonal line. And I have scissors, so I can just cut right carefully along this edge to make my first square. This video you might need to stop at certain times to repeat some processes for this, or you might need more time to finish something, or you might want to go back and look at a direction again. And whenever you need to do that, you can always push your space bar to stop the video, or just pause it with your mouse and go back and repeat what you need to see again. So here's my square I just cut out for my lantern, and here's my leftover piece. I'm going to put this aside for now so I can use it later. I'm going to make sure this fold is really nice and crisp because I'm going to need it for my lantern. The next fold I'm going to make, so this is a mountain fold that's sticking up. My next fold is going to be a valley fold along the other diagonal. So I'm just matching up my corners right here, starting in the middle and making a nice crisp fold all the way to the edges. I usually use my fingernail to make it a really nice fold. You can also use your scissors if you want to make that work. Okay. I'm going to also fold white side to white side to make this rectangle, folding it in half, making that nice and crisp, and one more time. You can see most of these folds, but I have two folds that are making my square into 4 smaller squares, and I have my diagonal folds as well. So the next thing I'm going to do, I have these two. I'm going to lay this out like a diamond with the white side up, and I'm going to bring my top corner down to meet my bottom corner. And the nice thing about this, if we have all our folds right, is that it will kind of fold itself in to make a nice big diamond. So I'll show you that again. When I'm looking at this, I have a strong mountain fold here. This fold is sticking up. My other folds are not. And I can bring these two corners together and down to the point closest to me, and then this will just fold down flat too. So that the top of my diamond here, there's not really a lot to see there, but down here I have a couple different layers. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is lift up one flap of it, kind of like I'm turning the page of a book, and I want to open this flap up and flatten it out. So I'm using my fingers to kind of pull this, and I'm pushing along this ridge here to try to flatten it out. And if it's not working well, I can also put my scissors in there to help flatten out my that fold. So I have a line down the center of this, and I'm lining it up just with that seam underneath. Also going to make all of these folds, I'm going to make them as crisp as I can. We're going to keep all of them as we go. Okay, so I took my page from the right and folded it flat. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to do the same thing. Lift up my flap from the right, open it up, and flatten it out carefully. Fold it down. All right. So I still have page on either side. What I want to do, it's easier for me to do this when it's really flat. So I'm like this. I am turning one page to the right. Here's that flap I want to fold down for the third one. I'm doing just the same thing on all sides, but I'm going to first move this one on the bottom over, just so that it's a little, I don't think that really made it any more even at all, but here I go for my third flap, holding everything down and pressing down that mountain fold, lining it up with the seam underneath. I'm going to flip this over and do the last one. Pressing with my fingers to flatten out that mountain and making these seams nice and crisp. Okay, so I now have a shape. I don't know if you can see this, but I have sort of 8 flaps, and we're going to keep going with that for the rest of this lantern. So the next thing I need to do, all these triangles up here are extra, so I'm going to try to make this even. 1, 2, 3, 4 on that side, 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut off these extra triangles. It's hard to cut through this watercolor paper like this. It's really thick. Cut off those, and I'm going to do this side as well. If it's really too hard to do, you could move some of your flaps to one side. So I'm just going to cut through these these 2 pieces of watercolor paper right now. That's a lot easier. I'll do it again here. Put aside those triangles. I won't need those. So now I have my shape, and it's all ready to go. My edges are crisp. So the next thing I'm doing, I'm setting this down with all the folds at the bottom and the point at the top, and I'm gonna choose my just one flap on the right, and I'm folding it up until it lines up with that center seam, and I'll fold this down. I'm gonna, we're training this paper right now. This fold is gonna change into a different shape, so I want to make sure it's really nice and crisp, so I know exactly, I can help teach this paper where I want it to go. I'm turning my page to the left like I'm reading a book, and here I'll do the same thing. Training that fold. I like to have this pretty even with the same flaps on each side. It makes it a lot easier to do that fold. So I'm turning this over, but I've only got 2 left over here. So I'm going to move a few and just flatten out my triangle just to make it easier to fold. So each one of these, I'm going to do this 8 times. Each time I turn a page, I'm going to add another little triangle fold at the bottom. So there's one more. I think I'm on number 4 now. Turn that over. I usually flip one on the bottom too to try to keep this nice and even. Okay. Just have 3 left. Here's my last one. So I now have all of my bottom right corners are folded up. And then the next step I'm going to do is unfold them. You can do this all at one time, or you can just do a few at a time. I think 3. And I'm going to open this up. So here are these folds I just did. And I want to now lift them up, follow the same fold I had before, and tuck them in between my lantern as I'm putting these pieces together. So you see that? I'll do this one. I just tucked in this corner, held it together, and I'm going to do that all the way around. So this latest fold I just made, I'm pushing the point in towards the center, and as I do that, it's okay to pull the bigger folds of my lantern together too. So I'm going to keep going all the way around. Sometimes my paper doesn't quite remember where that fold is if I didn't make it strong enough. So I have to just help it out a little bit. Okay, so here's what this looks like now, and I can keeping these points in. I'm going to fold this back up. So I've got the same shape, but I have all the blue bits are inside now, that ends. All right. Let's see here. I'll do 4 on each side again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I lay this out, the loose ends are at the top, and I'm going to take this nice big triangle and just fold it down like that. I can turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. This top flappy triangle bit, I'm just folding it down so that it's even with the corners. And I will keep moving this diamond around to do that on each of those 8 faces. I can turn the page to do it, or I can lift up my whole diamond and find the next one. So let's see, this one. Here's my last one. It gets real bumpy because I have so many flaps on one side, so you can always flatten them out, even them out, and then do your fold. It just gets a little wonky if you don't have it even. Okay, so here's my lantern. That's it. I can open this shape out a little bit. You can see where my star is. And then this point at the end just needs to get flattened out. So you can do that by, I sort of gently press it on the table and use my fingers to kind of push out the edges like this. Hope you can see what that looks like. And I can do that while I have it flat on the table, or I can hold it up and do that. And I can just keep going, pushing down gently and flattening out my nice folds until I end up with a shape that I like. There we go. So, there we go. A star lantern to celebrate the season of light.